Hi, I'm Kamali, taking you through some of the things people are talking about and some of the stuff they're sharing around the world on NewsFeed today.
Yes, very important. Go vote!
America votes. We look back at some of the moments from the campaign. We have an example of bad art with this statue and good art from this photographer. And why is this dog sitting outside? We'll tell you in Animals Doing Stuff. And top of the news feed, midterms, a word we've used a lot in the past few months. Thankfully, the vote happens today. Now, we have no idea how it will play out, but here are some of the moments from like the past year. Now, most pundits are once bitten and twice shy and won't make predictions after the way they were burned in the 2016 presidential elections. So rather than try and tell you who could win, we wanted to look at some of those viral moments in the run-up today. And unsurprisingly, they all touch on race. Where to begin?
Hey, first of all, he's got neo-Nazis helping him out in this state. He has spoken at racist conferences. He's accepted a contribution and would not return it from someone who referred to the former president of the United States as a Muslim, N-I-G-G-E-R. When asked to return that money, he said no. He's using that money to now fund negative ads. Now, I'm not calling Mr. DeSantis a racist. I'm simply saying the racists believe he's a racist.
We also had Beto O'Rourke. Now, he's a guy who's running against another guy called Ted Cruz in Texas, and he gave this answer when asked about the NFL players protesting by taking a knee.
The freedoms that we have were purchased not just by those in uniform, and they definitely were, but also by those who took their lives into their hands riding those Greyhound buses, the Freedom Riders in the Deep South in the 1960s. Rosa Parks getting from the back of the bus to the front of the bus, peaceful, nonviolent protests, including taking a knee at a football game to point out that black men, unarmed, black teenagers, unarmed, and black children, unarmed, are being killed at a frightening level right now, including by members of law enforcement, without accountability and without justice. While the eyes of this country are watching these games, they take a knee to bring our attention and our focus to this problem to ensure that we fix it. That is why they are doing it, and I can think of nothing more American than to peacefully stand up or take a knee for your rights anytime, anywhere, any place. So thank you very much.
And of course, we've had Donald Trump retweeting a really racist advert that even US networks have stopped playing because it is so offensive. Now, we're not going to play it either, but suffice to say, it's about migrants trying to get into the US, and they're somehow conflated with a murderer. It's still up on Trump's Twitter, and he said this when he was asked about it.
Why did you like that ad? What were you trying to
Well, a lot of things are offensive. Your questions are offensive a lot of times, so, you know.
And this election has been so contentious. Those who were once on the outside of the political debate are now central. Here's Arabella with one example of how phrases and acts in Trump's America go from political obscurity to the mainstream and back again.
Democrats produce mobs, Republicans produce jobs.
That slogan didn't come from a highly paid expert. It came from Twitter. The journey from this tweet and memes like this to President Trump took just 7 days. The New York Times and Politico have both taken a look at how #JobsNotMobs leapt off the internet and into use by the President of the United States, detailing both its ballooning popularity as a meme and how White House speechwriters monitor and mine online content. It's one of the clearest instances of the alt-right internet directly influencing the White House. But conservative political commentator Chadwick Moore says it wasn't just popularity that put jobs not mobs into Trump's mouth. He posted screenshots he says show he texted someone close to the Trump administration with the slogan and claims that's how it became part of the president's language. That kind of access would mean there was nothing alt about Moore, something he denies, saying he doesn't use the platform platforms associated with conservative fringe movements, and again taking credit for Trump's use of the slogan.
I'm a Western chauvinist. I'm a Western chauvinist, and I refuse to apologize.
But more does belong to one such group, and it's not just on the internet. He's a member of the Proud Boys. It's a male-only organisation. Members call themselves Western chauvinists, while at the same time claiming to reject both white nationalism and the term alt-right. It also promotes political violence against the left. Exactly the kind of mob mentality the president is now associating with his political opponents. These people were once so far removed from mainstream politics they could easily be ignored when it came to election promises and campaign rhetoric. Now, their slogans, memes, and conspiracy theories even affect the president.
You know, they have a word. It sort of became old-fashioned. It's called a nationalist. And I say, really, we're not supposed to use that word. You know what I am? I'm a nationalist, okay? I'm a nationalist.
All right, let's have a look at some of the other things that have caught our eye on social media. Now, gaming curfews are coming in China. Tencent, which makes one of the most popular games in China, this one, Honor of Kings, will now restrict children under the age of 12 to only an hour of play a day and children older than that to 2 hours, but not during the nighttime curfew. Adults can play as long as they like, but all gamers will have to register on a database that's linked to the police. All of this to try and deal with gaming addiction, which affects millions around the globe. Now, this handsome drink of water is Idris Elba, and he has been named the sexiest man alive by a tabloid magazine in the United States. The actor responded by saying thanks, then strangely for a Brit, called on Americans to vote in the midterms.
Any loose items bestowed overhead or under the seat, now under your bed.
And if you see the fasten seatbelt sign, return to your seat, buckle up. Cause seatbelts with low and tight, it crush your head.
Well, did you get any of that? This is the new safety video for Air New Zealand. It's a random rap that's set to Run DMC's Tricky. Just a few observations. If you've never seen a safety announcement on a plane, this is not going to help. And how can it be health and safety compliant? And I now fear for the culture when the next company tries to top it.
And make sure your mask is fitting legit before you go helping the kids. It's Kiwi to rock around and safe and fly. It's Kiwi. It's Kiwi. It's Kiwi.
Now, terrible statues of footballers are becoming a thing. This latest one has the internet in bits, and I do wonder what the Prince of Egypt himself thinks of it. Now, Peter Sanders has been taking pictures for half a century. We sat down with him to get an idea of how he feels that photography has changed and how social media has changed the way we interact with the world around us.
My name's Peter Sanders. I've been a professional photographer for over 50 years. So at the time that I started doing photography was the late 60s, and I was interested in music. You know, the way I understand it, they were the poets of the time, and so, you know, people like Bob Dylan and the Beatles, and so I started doing photography and I started photographing all those kind of people. Actually, I didn't photograph the Beatles, they were already too famous, you couldn't get to them. If you think about music, before that period, it was kind of classical music and it was very structured and there was a lot of preparation. Then rock and roll came as like instant music, and that's what's happened with photography. So music became global music, and photography now has become it's a global phenomena. You know, we've become obsessed with images. So what does it mean? It's some form of communication that the youth are involved in, and we need to understand it. I mean, I cannot take a picture on an iPhone, but you know, I meet young people, they can take a picture, they edit it and everything. And one of the master classes I do is what are the elements that makes a great photograph? 3 billion pictures are being loaded up, but how many of them are memorable? And that's what I'm trying to teach the students, is create a memorable image that has some story to it or triggers some emotion in you. It's not so much technique, because you can learn the technique on YouTube or anywhere on the internet, but how to look at creation. If you look at a child sees the world in wonderment, you know, if it picks up a beautiful stone or a flower, it looks at it with deep intensity. We lose that as we get older. So as you get older, you look at, oh, that's a flower. You look with your mind instead of really looking at it intensely. So we need to redevelop, we need to regain that back. And a lot of that is to do with being more present. We live in a time where everybody's distracted. Most of us, we're just busy. I'm as guilty as everyone. We're busy doing stuff. We're busy doing things. Actually, we're called human beings, which means we're meant to be. And by being where we are and who we are, that's when things happen. But we miss most of it. And we live at a time where everyone's missing it. They're so stressed out about work and life and on their phones and watching TV and listening to this and just not present. And we have to get back to that. If we're going to unite as a community of people, if we're going to change this world, look at what's going on in the world. It's unbelievable. Did we learn nothing in all this time? Since the killing of Cain and Abel, we're still doing it on mass level? What? That's why I think photography has become such a global language, because it kind of bypasses this a little bit and it just goes straight to the heart. You know, we live at such a time of, thinking and worrying and all that, and somehow photography bypasses that and just, yeah, that speaks to me, you know.
All right, let's go around the world now for some other stories you need to know this Tuesday. Some men in London thought it would be funny to do a bonfire for November the 5th, making fun of the Grenfell Tower fire in which 72 people died last year. Now, these men then put the video of a model tower burning and laughed at it and put it on social media. The men were called out and handed themselves in to the cops, who've arrested them. Should there be a constitution for the internet? That's basically the plan coming from one of the guys who invented the web, Tim Berners-Lee. He's published a draft of what he's calling a Magna Carta for the web. The full plan will be published in May of 2019. That's when half the planet will be online. His plan calls on governments to give their citizens access to the internet freely, safely, and without fear, and calls on companies to make the internet affordable, accessible, and respectful of privacy. Now, can cryptocurrency be the reason the Prime Minister of the Marshall Islands will lose her job? Hilda Heine wanted the country to start using something called sovereign as a backup to their currency. The Marshall Islands use the US dollar. But the powers that want to maintain traditional currency controlled by big banks have been critical, and now her party wants her out of office. The no confidence vote is on the 12th of November. And in animals doing stuff, we have this video of a dog which went viral yesterday. Now, see if the eagle-eyed among you can guess when it was filmed. Now, apparently the doggo sitting outside thinks the screen door is always closed, even when it isn't. So he sits and waits until someone comes along and pretends to open the door. Then he comes in. Let's have a look again. He's waiting. She's going to pretend to open the door, and he will be in. So, man's best friend, but perhaps nature's dumbest animal. Well, that is all from the NewsFeed team. Reach out to me with your questions, comments, complaints, and suggestions. I'm at Kamali Melbourne. Follow, subscribe, and add. See you again tomorrow.